It's 10 o'clock. This is Sky News at 10 live from Lebanon this evening. Our top story, the scorched earth of northern Gaza as Israeli airstrikes kill at least 23 people, and the UN accuses its military of trying to completely cut the area off. As Israel buries its military dead after a Hezbollah drone strike, its prime minister vows to strike in every part of Lebanon, including here in Beirut. The shattered buildings, which are the evidence of that intention, but Israel faces condemnation from countries, including the UK, over attacks on peacekeepers in the south.
Also on Sky News at 10 tonight, the killing of 10-year-old Sarah Sharif. A court hears her father said he had legally punished her when she died. Selling Britain for king and country, how the monarch got involved tonight in trying to win billions in investment for the UK.
Separation confirmed.
And there you go. NASA's Europa Clipper probe.
And setting course on a 6-year space mission to the frozen world, which could be a home for life. Plus, we'll take a first look at tomorrow's front pages. That's in our press preview from 10:30 right through to midnight.
Good evening. Israel is facing international criticism tonight over its assaults here in Lebanon and in Gaza. Its attacks on the positions of United Nations peacekeepers are contrary to international law, said 4 nations, including the UK. And in Gaza, the United Nations Secretary-General condemned the large number of civilian casualties as Israel again intensifies its military action there. This as Israel mourned 4 of its soldiers killed in a Hezbollah drone attack on their base last night. We'll have more on that in just a moment. But first, the latest on the assault in Gaza. And just a warning here that our Middle East correspondent Alistair Bunkle's report includes pictures of a woman on fire.
The fighting in Gaza has intensified again. Yesterday, 6 children were killed after a drone strike in Al-Shati refugee camp. The boys had been playing football on the street at the time. It is not clear why Israel fired on them. Then, last night, Israeli artillery hit a UN school in northern Gaza. 20 were killed in this attack. The school was supposed to be used as a polio vaccination centre today. As the wounded were being taken to Al-Aqsa Hospital, another Israeli airstrike hit the grounds. Tents where people had been sheltering and sleeping quickly caught alight. They desperately tried to put the flames out as people tried to escape. Rescuers used blankets to try and shield them from the intense heat. One woman crawled out of the fire, still alive. But at least 4 people burned to death. This morning, people picked through the remains of the tents. The Israeli military said it was targeting a Hamas command center in both strikes, but they have so far provided no evidence of that.
My tent, it's gone. Winter is coming. What am I supposed to do? There's nothing left in there. No mattresses, no food, no blankets, all our belongings. We have nothing to wear. I only have what I'm wearing now.
The situation in northern Gaza is dire. 30 trucks of food and flour were allowed in today, the first aid to get into the north for 2 weeks, according to the UN. Israel has ordered everyone to leave and is carrying out another major ground operation. Many Gazans are refusing to move, though, either because they have nowhere to go or because they don't want to surrender their homes to the Israeli military. It is becoming increasingly impossible for them to stay, however. Alistair Bunkle, Sky News, in Jerusalem.
Well, Israel's Prime Minister said his military would continue to strike in Lebanon too, in a message tonight. Benjamin Netanyahu was speaking as he visited the base where 4 young soldiers were killed in a drone attack yesterday. Our international affairs editor, Dominic Waghorn, has this report.
Hezbollah's latest Israeli victim was laid to rest just a few miles from the border with Lebanon. But the attack that killed him came deep into Israel, 100 miles south. Alon Amatai was one of 4 soldiers to die. His mother said she felt her heart had been ripped out by his death. Soldiers filmed scenes of chaos and bloodshed last night in the minutes after the attack. The drone came with extraordinary accuracy and timing, hitting an army canteen as recruits sat down to eat. The attack, so far south and without any warning, has left Israelis stunned. Hagit's son, who was injured, watched, she says, as his comrades died around him.
Supposed to be safe, where he was supposed to be safe, but unfortunately not.
And how do you feel about that as a mother?
I feel bad. I feel that there's no place that we can be safe. Understand? No place. Even in my house, I don't know if I can be safe with this weapon.
Israel's Prime Minister toured the scene of the attack. It undermines his government's claim its invasion of Lebanon makes Israel safer. But in a video message later, he insisted it would go on.
We are fighting a tough campaign against Iran's axis of evil that wants to destroy us. They won't make it. We keep fighting. We pay painful prices, but we have tremendous achievements, and we will continue to achieve them. I want to make it clear, we will continue to hit Hezbollah mercilessly in all parts of Lebanon.
In Tel Aviv security headquarters, they are also planning Israel's next move against Iran, thought to be imminent. Israel's plans to retaliate for Iran's ballistic missile attack 2 weeks ago have been strengthened by America in an unprecedented way. The US is sending a new anti-missile system and 100 soldiers to operate it, meaning for the first time American boots will be on the ground in Israel since this conflict began. The missile system will give greater range to Israel's ability to defend itself should Iran choose to strike back. While the countdown for Israel's retaliation continues, it is braced for more attacks from the north. Hezbollah says they will continue as long as Israel's invasion of Lebanon goes on. Dominic Waghorn, Sky News, Tel Aviv.
Well, Ireland's foreign minister said today what he believes is the reason Israel wants to force United Nations peacekeepers from their bases in southern Lebanon. It's to give itself free rein by driving the eyes and ears of the UN away, he said. Israel continued its military campaign across this country today. Our international correspondent Alex Rossi reports now from the southern city of Tyre.
This is all that's left of an apartment block hit by an Israeli airstrike. The building flattened into a pile of rubble. The people inside didn't stand a chance, and rescue workers are still trying to recover bodies from the site. There's been no comment from the Israeli military, and it's not clear what the target was in this mainly Christian village.
With airstrikes in the north, it is apparent that Israel is expanding its attacks across the length of the country. And here in southern Lebanon, the ground invasion is also gathering pace. The Israeli military has issued more evacuation orders. But for many Lebanese, it's no longer clear where they should move to safety.
Whilst the intensity of the fighting in the south shows no sign of slowing, neither does the standoff over the presence of UN peacekeepers. UNIFIL says its forces have been deliberately targeted by Israel's military, whilst Israel says they're being used as human shields by Hezbollah. It points to tunnels built next to UN compounds as evidence. The IDF's actions, though, have been condemned by 40 countries, a reflection of the international outrage.
What do you believe Israel wants to achieve by driving the UN out of South Lebanon?
Essentially to drive the eyes and ears out of South Lebanon and to give itself free rein.
Israel has also been stepping up its airstrikes in the east. This is the village of Ein Bordei, Many of the residents here had already fled in recent weeks. Lebanon is now facing a major humanitarian crisis, with more than a fifth of the population displaced by this conflict.
And Alex joins me now from Tyre. And, well, more attacks across Lebanon today, Alex. But the big question remains what Israel plans to do with Iran.
Yeah, and that guessing game is continuing, Mark. People, of course, very, very nervous about what will come next to this region. The big fear is that it will escalate and lead to bigger regional war. Certainly the delivery of this THAAD system, this terminal high-altitude defence system, has made some people speculate whether it may be a few days away before Israel retaliates. It's thought it will take the US and its troops about a week to set up. But we've heard from the Iranian foreign minister who says that any retaliation by the Israelis will also be met by retaliation from them. As far as they're concerned, there are no red lines. So you have this kind of escalation ladder building, and it seems at the moment that it's hard to see where there could be a diplomatic off-ramp. Now, diplomacy has been continuing to try and de-escalate the situation, but as we've seen so far since October the 7th, this conflict, of course, has kind of gone on for more than a year. There is no sign of any kind of talking, putting a stop to things, but a great deal of fear here in Lebanon and across the region.
Yeah, OK, Alex, thanks very much indeed. And that is pretty much that from Beirut tonight. Let's go back now to Anna in London.
Mark, thank you. Sarah Sharif was found dead at her Surrey home last year. The 10-year-old had suffered dozens of injuries. Today, a court heard that her father told police he had legally punished her and that she had died. The Old Bailey also saw a video from Sky News in which Sarah's stepmother called the death an incident. Our correspondent Sabah Chowdhury was in court.
At 10 years old, Sarah Sharif had her whole life ahead of her. But all that was snatched last summer, when her bruised and lifeless body was discovered at home in Woking. Here at the Old Bailey, the jury heard that Sarah was subject to brutal treatment and a campaign of abuse at home. This included bite marks, bruising, broken bones, and also burns on her buttock from an iron. Charged with Sarah's murder and causing or allowing her death are her parents and family. Her father, Irfan Sharif, stepmother Binish Batul and uncle Faisal Shahzad Malik. They deny all charges and the prosecution say they're expected to blame each other. The court also heard that they left for Pakistan the day after police found Sarah's body. It was there Sharif made a distress call to the police, lasting 8.5 minutes. "I've killed my daughter," he said. "I legally punished her and she died. She was naughty. I beat her up. It wasn't my intention to kill her, but I beat her up too much." He also left a note next to Sarah's body. "I swear to God my intention was not to kill her, but I lost it," it read. "I'm running away because I am scared." While in Pakistan, the couple sent Sky News this video, which was referenced and played in court.
Firstly, I would like to talk about Sarah. Sarah's death was an incident.
But it's unclear what that meant. Weeks later, the couple eventually flew back to the UK, where they were met by police. Now they face a judge and jury over the next 6 weeks, who will hear how this tragedy, the untimely death of this young girl, was allowed to happen. Sabah Chowdhury, Sky News at the Old Bailey.
So Keir Starmer would have been pleased at the words from one top American business leader today. The chief executive of one pharmaceutical giant said the UK had lost its lustre over the past decade, but the new government was saying the right things. The Prime Minister was heading a summit aimed at drumming up investment at home, but his ministers couldn't avoid questions over whether they're about to hit companies with higher taxes, as our business and economics correspondent Paul Kelso reports.
In the historic heart of the City of London, investors from around the world gathered to hear the hard sell from a Prime Minister having a hard time. Today we're pursuing a different ambition, a shared ambition, growth. You have to grow your business and I have to grow my country.
Ministers were out in force after preparations had been knocked off course by the Transport Secretary, calling for a boycott of P&O ferries, just as its parent company was planning a £1 billion investment, a deal only confirmed by its chairman as the summit began. An obvious question then for the Chancellor.
Would you get on a P&O ferry?
I wouldn't have any problems with getting on a P&O ferry, and I think it's really important that we've secured this investment for Britain.
Rachel Reeves needs plenty more like it to deliver on her plans, but with the budget just over a fortnight away, might these same investors soon be asked to bail out the public finances too?
You're asking for investment today, you're making the case for Britain, but are you not also looking at that room and thinking, I can shake these people upside down for tax revenue, capital gains tax, increases in employer national insurance? They're actually going to be slapped with a load of taxes not long after they're out of the door.
Well, the precondition for bringing investment into Britain is to bring stability back to Britain. And what so many businesses say to me, not just today, but whenever I meet them, is that over the last few years, the lack of stability around policy making, the lack of stability in our financial and fiscal position as a country deterred investment in Britain. And so I know what businesses want to see in the budget is bringing that stability back to the UK economy.
The government has invested a significant chunk of its political capital in an unashamed pitch for the hard cash it needs to deliver on its programme. But the row over P&O demonstrates that whether it's workers' rights reforms that might add cost to business or the need to rebuild the public finances, every decision comes with trade-offs.
The NHS is among them. Life sciences a priority of a new industrial strategy and reform on the table. Welcome news for this US drugs giant.
Is the UK still an attractive place to invest?
Well, I think in our industry it had sort of lost its luster over the last half decade. New government's in, they're saying the right things.
Prime Minister, do you travel on P&O ferries?
The Prime Minister presumably thinks a claimed £60 billion in committed investment answer enough on a day that ended with a royal reception at St Paul's. A rare example of the moneylenders being thrown into the temple by a government hoping the pomp pays off. Paul Kelso, Sky News.
Well, that investment summit has been continuing this evening, and our chief political correspondent, John Craig, is at St Paul's Cathedral tonight for us. So smiles today then, John, but do you get a sense that there is still a conflict from those attending between that positive message over investment and some of Labour's policies, including those potentially to come in the budget?
Well, this summit has ended with a glittering reception here at St Paul's Cathedral, attended by 300 guests. King Charles was here and chatted to top business people, including Sir Tim Berners-Lee, who invented the World Wide Web. There were celebrities, top guests like the astronaut Tim Peake, composer Andrew Lloyd Webber, the former England football manager Gareth Southgate as well. All the cabinet were here, and Sir Elton John performed for them. He's a favourite of the royals, you remember, of course. He sang Candle in the Wind at Diana's funeral all those years ago. Well, I don't know whether Sir Elton sang Sacrifice, but it could well be that the bosses here, who have pledged over £60 billion in investment, more than double in a Tory summit last year, sacrifice may be the word to sum up what they're going to have to pay in extra business taxes, because the budget in just over 2 weeks' time has loomed large over this summit today, and that is because both the Chancellor Rachel Reeves and the Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer have signalled pretty strongly that tax rises are on the way. First of all, Rachel Reeves has said that all but confirmed that employers' national insurance contributions are going up. That's already got the Tories claiming it's a breach of a manifesto pledge, and of course the Labour just simply said we won't increase national insurance. No mention of employers or employees. Secondly, the Prime Minister has signalled that capital gains tax is going up, although he said that suggestions it could go up to 39% were wide of the mark.
John, thank you very much indeed. Plenty on all of that in the papers, which we will come to shortly, of course. Now, more than 10 million adults are estimated to be obese in England, but fewer than 1,000 of them have benefited from the much-heralded rollout of the weight loss jab Wegovy on the NHS. The research led by Sky News suggests that only a third of integrated care boards across the country had made the drug available. Our science correspondent Thomas Moore has the latest.
It's just a slow, painful process.
Every step is painful for Ken. He needs a double knee replacement, but at 25 stone, he's considered too high risk to have the surgery.
And you can see him huffing and puffing just for coming up that.
He's been told to lose 5 stone to have the operation, but he can't exercise. His last hope was the weight loss drug Wegovy.
This is the actual referral form.
His GP referred him to the hospital obesity clinic. Back came a text.
Currently our waiting list is around 2 years and we are unable to offer medication. It's all shocking, isn't it? I just wonder how many other people are getting this.
Wegovy should have been available through specialist hospital clinics since December, but Freedom of Information requests by Sky News show that by the end of April, only 14 out of 42 integrated care boards in England had officially rolled out the drug through clinics, prescribing the drug to just 838 people. That's much less than the 13,500 patients that NICE, the NHS Cost Effectiveness Authority, estimated should be receiving the drug.
The first place they work is the brain, that they affect appetite and give you a feeling of fullness.
This obesity expert says there's prejudice even within the NHS.
We know we have something that we can offer them, but are unable to offer it to everyone who could benefit from it. Money follows for other illnesses, but doesn't follow for this illness. And that's really a form of bias, and seeing that within the NHS is a bit soul-destroying.
Sally also tried to get weight loss jabs on the NHS. Weighing 18 stone and having high blood pressure should have qualified her, but she too got turned down.
We're taking now.
Now she pays £160 a month for a private supply she can only afford with the help from her dad.
So the penny's charged, you grab your skin. That is it.
Is it worth it?
Oh, most definitely. Now my food is on much smaller plates, and 9 times out of 10 I don't even finish what I've got.
There'll be lots of people who say, do it the hard way, do it with diet, do it with exercise, don't go for an injection.
Yeah, I've done that, and even my boss said, why would you want to be putting that drug in your body? Because I'm desperate. Ready, go.
People can lose more than 15% of their body weight in a matter of months. NHS England said specialist weight management services are provided based on local priorities. It's working with the government, industry and experts to ensure that new treatments can be rolled out safely, effectively and affordably.
I usually get up about there.
But for desperate patients, some waiting for life-changing surgery, it's happening far too slowly. Thomas Moore, Sky News.
Well, to the US now, where there are just 3 weeks to go until the presidential election. One of the key issues for voters is abortion rights. And in 11 states, specific abortion amendments are on the ballot as well. As it stands, each state dictates its own laws, ranging from a total ban right through to complete access. Donald Trump believes that should remain the case. But Kamala Harris wants to restore national abortion protection laws. At one end of the scale is Texas, where rights are severely restricted. Only when a person's life is in danger can an abortion go ahead. Compare that to California, which is among the more liberal states where abortion is legal up to 24 weeks. Well, in neighbouring Arizona, it has included abortion on the ballot. Currently, it is legal until the 15th week of pregnancy, with exceptions made for when a mother's life is at risk, but not for rape or incest. Our US correspondent, Martha Kellner, reports now from Arizona.
These are the protocols that you're going to follow. You're going to do the procedure. We do have protesters certain days of the week, especially
dozens of times a day. Irma explains the process and risks of abortion to women in this clinic.
20 and 1 pill. It's going to be a busy day.
May I get your first and last name, please?
But it's no longer simply a personal medical matter. Across this country, abortion is a burning election issue. Especially here in the battleground state of Arizona, where it's literally on the ballot.
You have politicians that basically see something they can use and they're going to use it, no matter what it is.
Dr. Eunice sees how a patchwork of abortion laws across the country are putting women's lives at risk. Earlier this year, Arizona briefly enforced a law from 1864, completely banning all abortions.
These people were going across state lines, getting procedures done that can cause bleeding, delayed bleeding, and then coming back.
I felt defeated.
Across town, these women know intimately the myriad circumstances which lead to abortion, one after rape.
I found myself in an emotionally and mentally abusive relationship.
Others to save their own lives.
I carried my healthy twin daughter and my dead twin son. I was beyond devastated.
Kristen was 17 weeks pregnant when she was told her unborn child had severe fetal abnormalities.
Our baby was still, it was guaranteed she would live a short life and it would be full of pain.
Already a mother to a young son, Kristen and her husband made the heartbreaking decision to get an abortion. But in Arizona, it was banned past 15 weeks. So they drove 7 hours across state lines to New Mexico for the procedure.
I truly could not believe it was happening. I didn't really have time at the time, the drive there, to think, reflect on how angry I was and how I had been so let down by my state.
What would you say to someone who might have long-held beliefs in banning abortion? What would you say to them?
For those people that are so against it, think of the other women, such as myself, who desperately want to have another baby. I had to use abortion care.
The election mood here is febrile. This is a Kamala Harris campaign office, abandoned after not one but 3 shooting attacks. With polling showing Arizona balanced on a knife edge, Latino voters here could hold the sway. And some at this concert are more motivated by immigration and the economy than abortion.
I'm still up in the air about it, but I think only because of how the economy was functioning, things were cheaper. I'm going to vote for Trump.
With 3 weeks left to the election, time to win over undecided voters is fast running out. Martha Kellner, Sky News, Phoenix, Arizona.
Now, in the imagination of the famous science fiction writer Arthur C. Clarke, there was life on Jupiter's moon Europa, and launching today a real-life mission which could bring us a step closer to finding out if he was right. The Europa Clipper will orbit the icy moon and take readings of the water oceans that it's believed lie beneath the surface. Our science and technology editor Tom Clark has this report.
3, 2, 1, ignition.
It took the heft of a Falcon Heavy rocket to launch Europa Clipper on its 1.8 billion-mile journey to Jupiter. This is the largest planetary space probe NASA has ever launched to look for the conditions needed for life to exist on Europa, one of Jupiter's icy moons.
Separation confirmed.
And there you go.
Its destination is believed to be a water world with salty ocean up to 100 miles deep, hidden beneath miles of ice. The probe will survey Europa's frozen surface, use radar to penetrate the ice and attempt to measure its ocean's depth and saltiness. If plumes of water erupt from the surface, they can be analysed for chemical signatures of life.
These potential habitats are below kilometres of ice. And so if there are life-forming conditions, we expect they're quite deep down in the deep dark. So you can think of the bottom of Earth's oceans where it's high pressure, very cold, very dark. These are enormous oceans that are like that throughout because they're beneath such thick ice crusts. When the water comes to you, that saves a lot of hassle.
Dr. Masters works on a European space probe, JUICE, which has already launched to study Europa and its sister moons Ganymede and Callisto. The 2 missions arrive in 2030 and 2031 and must endure some of the harshest radiation in the solar system. If both survive, there's double the chance to spot the conditions for alien life on Jupiter's moons. But if it exists, the job of finding life beneath miles of ice and ocean will fall to future missions. Tom Clark, Sky News.
Well, that was Sky News at 10. Coming up, we'll take a first look at tomorrow's newspapers in the press preview tonight, joined by a brace, if that is the word, of political editors. At The Sun's Harry Cole and The Guardian's Pippa Creral. Welcome to both of you. Among the stories we will be discussing, certainly this on the front of the Financial Times. Its headline that Rachel Reeves signals a rise in business taxes as Keir Starmer courts global investors. That and plenty more after this.
I say, bring it on.
With America divided and tensions running high, get ready for an election like no other.
Join our teams as we follow the campaign trail as America decides.
We will win, win, win. Get closer to the action this US election with full reaction and analysis.
Sky News, the full story first.
Well, this is Sky News. In just a moment, the press preview, a first look at what is on the front pages. First, though, a reminder of our top stories this evening. The UK, France, Germany and Italy have released a joint statement saying Israeli attacks on UN peacekeepers are contrary to international humanitarian law. In that joint statement, the four nations said the attacks must stop at once. The government has welcomed more than £60 billion of investment in the British economy as part of the UK's International Investment Summit. It comes as Sir Keir Starmer tries to reset his administration after a first 100 days marked by scandal and infighting. And a Sky News investigation has found thousands of people with severe obesity are being denied access to effective treatment because the NHS rollout of the weight loss jab Wegovy is happening far more slowly than planned. Well, hello there, you're watching the press preview. A first look at what is on the front pages. Time then to see what's making the headlines with the political editors of The Sun and The Guardian, Harry Cole and Pippa Crerar. Welcome to both of you, with us until midnight. So to the front pages then, let's start with the Metro, leading with the first day of the Old Bailey trial of 3 people on the killing of 10-year-old Sarah Sharif, and the words of her father read out in court: "I beat Sarah up too much." The Express, too, quoting her father: "I legally punished her and she died." More graphic reporting in the Mail describing how Sarah was burned, tied up, bitten and had her spine broken before she died. As the Keir Starmer's summit to attract UK investment continues, the Financial Times says Chancellor Rachel Reeves has signalled a rise in business taxes in her budget later this month. The Eye says a rise in employers' national insurance contributions is the most likely measure as the Chancellor tries to plug a black hole in the UK finances. Pippa's paper, The Guardian, also saying employer national insurance is the option favoured by the Chancellor, while The Times leads with warnings from business leaders that such a move will cause collateral damage to the UK economy. The Telegraph reports that unemployed people are to be given weight loss drugs on the NHS as part of a government drive to get them back into work. The Mirror says Mrs Brown's Boys star Brendan O'Carroll is under investigation over an alleged racist joke. Harry's paper, The Sun, leads with claims at a tribunal by ex-Manchester City footballer Benjamin Mendy that some of his former teammates attended sex and booze parties with him. And The Star reveals that up to a third of us often sneak off to the garden shed to avoid speaking to anyone and stay there for up to 4 hours. I bet a third of us don't have a garden shed.
Quite nice, though, wouldn't it?
It would be lovely. I do love a shed.
Escape the children, escape work.
Escape everything. Phone down. Remind, by scanning the QR code you'll see on screen during the programme, you can check out the front pages of those papers yourself while you listen to our guests. So let's head to Harry and to Pippa. Investment Summit triggered lots of speculation about the budget, it seems, does it not? Which the FT, Guardian, the Eye picking up on. Pippa, the FT, first of all then, business taxes in the firing line.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost inevitable that speculation will turn to what's going to be in the budget. It is, of course, just a couple of weeks' time. And there was some consternation in some quarters in government that the timing of this investment summit was this way round, that it was before the budget rather than after. And the argument that the Treasury pushed back with was that at the investment summit, they could be much more upbeat, much more sort of talking up Britain, talking about how it's a stable, much more stable political and economic situation than the one they inherited, and that it would be, you know, it's a prime opportunity for big businesses to invest. And lo and behold, we've seen 60 billion quid, 60 quid invested in the UK announced today, which governments do these summits every year. Last year, I think it was 30 billion, or almost 30 billion that was announced. But at budgets, it's all about how you effectively penalise, in this case, business. So it's about tax. And they wanted to have the narrative that everything was actually looking good, a bit of boosterism after a really sort of doom and gloom laden start to this Labour government. However, businesses have kind of been a bit like, this is a bit odd doing it this way around. Surely we should have, we'll get stability, knowing what happened to things like capital gain tax, with employers' national insurance, all these other areas of taxation. Have that first, and then we'll make decisions about whether we're able to invest. I guess the government will be looking at that, though, saying 60 billion quid, not too bad.
Get the money off business before they run. That's how I describe it. Rachel Reeves said today, unlocking private investment is at the heart of everything we do. Yet, capital gains tax in the firing line, employers' national insurance in the firing line, and workers' rights, which some say will be damaging to business. So there's a conflict here, isn't there?
Totally. I think the budget is going to be in sort of 2 parts. One, the pain of tax rises, but they're determined to say are not on working people. I think we're about to have a big old row about the manifesto commitments. They said no national insurance rises, no income tax rises, no VAT rises. Does that include employer contributions to national insurance?
What do you think?
Well, I think there's no doubt about it. I mean, I wrote this morning she's going to do it. She's going to raid employer national insurance. I think think maybe also taxing pension contributions from employers putting an eye on that I think will raise about £9 to £10 billion a year. Very easy lever you can pull, but there's going to be a big political row about it. At the same time, that what they want to talk about in the budget is going for growth, going for wealth creation, which they've pinned their entire strategy on. Got to get growth up to 2%, otherwise we're back to sort of the grim days of austerity and cuts. They want to offset the tax rises and the spending cuts that are coming down the line, that all sort of credible economists say are needed by this mythical dash for growth, and they need the private sector to do that. And they're saying, look, we're going to get the banks to agree with us. If we, as a government, inject money into the economy, the private sector will follow suit. It's a big gamble. There's no guarantee it'll work, but it seems at the moment to be the only lever they've got.
Certainly the biggest lever they've got, and it's been very interesting watching we talk in journalism about rolling the pitch on big announcements, and I think one of the criticisms of Downing Street in recent times is that they haven't rolled the pitch enough, with some often quite controversial decisions, winter fuel being an obvious one. And yet the Treasury seems to have been doing a pretty good job of it. Going back, 3 or 4 weeks, there was a letter, I think, in the Financial Times from a series of senior economists calling on the government to change the way it calculates one of its fiscal rules, the debt rule, so that you could borrow more to invest in infrastructure. And you put certain capital spending kind of into a different pot, freeing up money for major infrastructure investment. The idea being, as Harry says, that private money will follow public money. And then ever since then, we've had signals, hints, and indications from the Treasury themselves, from people around the Treasury and from ministers. We're now at a point, even though we're a couple of weeks off the budget and no one has stated it explicitly, that we're expecting the government to be able to leverage billions of pounds into often public sector, so national infrastructure like transport and energy, but also things like hospital buildings, school buildings, public services, which people use every single day and see crumbling around them. So there is an opportunity there, I think. A lot of it will be how the narrative is cast and whether people feel that raising money through, for example, national insurance on employers isn't a manifesto breach. Just very quickly, Harry this morning was pointing out that the Conservatives were actually before the election were suggesting that this was not clear whether national insurance was on.
But could be a bit of a row. But the point is, if you change employers' national insurance contributions, they don't pay up so fast, and if you tackle their pension contributions, they don't contribute so much to pensions, thereby impacting workers.
That's the argument. That's the nub of the argument we're going to have. Is a tax on jobs? Is it directly taking it from the pay packet of a worker, or if it's making it more expensive to employ someone? Are you going to, at a time when recruitment is already down, having been scared witless by this Chancellor and this Prime Minister in the first 6-7 weeks of their administration? Business confidence is down. You're going to now make it more expensive to employ people. Dangerous game to play. Whether they can pull that off, I suspect we'll end up with an almighty fudge where they do a lot of little bits of little things, a little bit on CGT, a little bit on national insurance. But the Treasury are basically saying, look, you've got to raise money. You can break your manifesto commitments or you can spook the bond markets. Choose.
OK, and just on capital gains tax, the suggestion from Sir Keir that reports are wide of the mark, which was that it would go up to 39%. So what do you think it will end up
39% would be that's 11% on it now. That would be a remarkable rise. If you put it up a little bit, people just don't sell things, and therefore they don't pay it. If you put it up too much, people start to flee. Then maybe there's a sweet spot, 33, 34%, where actually you can make money. The old Laffer curve comes back into it, that you manage to make money on it. But, I mean, it's still going to be controversial.
And people against seeing it equivalent to income tax suggest actually it ruins entrepreneurship, risk-taking. You may put money into something but not see the rewards of it in 10 years. Your profit might be taken away by inflation. So there are arguments why it should not be equivalent to income tax.
There are, and I don't think we're expecting equalisation. I think, as Harry says, there will be a sweet spot that they go for. But it's worth pointing out that 39% speculation that Starmer discounted today, said was wide of the mark, was actually about the upper range of Treasury modelling, which was actually over quite a broad. There's a broad range of options there, which actually is both, is serious and sensible response to the budget, is to model what the different outcomes outcomes might be.
The problem is though, that Starmer's got himself in a bit of a pickle here yet again, in the fact that their whole line is we don't comment on budget speculation. Pippa and our colleagues and me will be phoning up day in, day out, going, are you doing this? Are you doing that? Are you doing that? The blanket response is we don't comment on budget speculation. And lo and behold, the Prime Minister goes on TV and comments on budget speculation. So now we know it's not going to be 39, we can start to work our way down. 38, 37, 36. How the sausages are made. That's what we like to
fun
reveal
for the next
here,
3 weeks. In the meantime, straight to the horse's mouth for the Sun.
Yes.
By the Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer.
Indeed.
Right, what have we learned in this?
So they're going to move on from here's all the money yesterday, or today at the summit, yesterday in terms of tomorrow's paper. But Starmer's now laying out, right, what are we going to do with this money? And actually, it's quite a punchy piece for a Prime Minister to basically say, look, suck it up, NIMBYs. Yeah, we're going to need, you know, the whole country's going to be a national effort. You know, we've got all this investment coming. The last thing you want to do is spook that investment by bogging it all down in planning regulation and local complaints. You know, everyone's got to play their part, and that might mean having a ginormous, you know, battery farm, a data centre, or indeed more houses around the corner.
It's going to be YIMBYs all the way. That's a new catchphrase in number 10. Yes, in my backyard. Yes, it's actually a thing.
Yeah.
It's actually a thing.
We have been banging the drum for building for years, and you know, it's going to be a fight. You know, these seats, the Tory seats that blocked the last housing plans and all the other regulation and sort of deregulation are now basically Labour and Lib Dem
The Sun's
seats.
going to be campaigning for pylons across the village green.
We're campaigning for cheaper electricity.
Let's see what the Telegraph does with that one.
Well, yeah.
In the meantime, relating investment and getting people back to work is the story on weight loss drugs, Pippa, in the Daily Telegraph.
So we've heard a lot about Wegovy and other weight loss jabs, and you know, people using them to just lose a few pounds here and there, but also the health benefits to them being prescribed on the NHS. They can seriously reduce the risk of diabetes and other obesity and aging, obesity-related ailments. And the latest use of them is that, or potential use, is that Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, has said that they could be deployed in order to get people back to work, because the numbers of people that currently, because of these weight-related health conditions, aren't working, they believe should be reduced. And it's not just that they're a significant burden on the NHS. It's also that the government believes it's also that, you know, they're holding back the economy.
Yeah, and Thomas Moore, our correspondent's piece running all day today, makes exactly that point for people who, you know, can't get operations because they can't lose the weight to get the operation, then they can't do exercise.
It's shaping up to be possibly the most significant drug invented in, you know, in the last 50 years. And
since aspirin or statins.
Exactly. The problem is there is a bit of at the moment, there's a sort of backlog on it, the fact that so many people are using it privately, and as Wes Streeting, I think, make the point today, it's not about, you know, it's not about using it to look better on Instagram. This could actually, in the right way, be doing it. But the sort of the producers of these drugs, various brands of it, have a huge, you know, people are basically hoarding privately buying it, and it's making it much harder for the NHS actually to be able to purchase it. You know, you can have that debate about whether that's, you know, the rights and wrongs of that, but, you know, we need to dramatically increase production of this drug if it really is going to have the major effect that politicians clearly can see it having.
And there's a real shift. I think it represents a real shift in sort of approach to health, which is a preventative one. We've heard it a lot from this government about trying to deal with some of the problems before they become too big. I think it's about 40% of the NHS budget is spent on preventable health conditions, a figure which is forecast, according to the Telegraph, to reach 60% by 2040. So you can understand why there's an imperative on them to try and tackle.
But it's not just reducing the obesity. It's also, there's evidence that's showing it's stopping people drinking, stopping people smoking. You know, the potential of this drug and tweaks to it for different, you know, addictions could be potentially massively game-changing in the next 10 years.
Fascinating. And yet, at the moment, it feels like yet another backlog NHS story, doesn't it, really?
Yeah.
Lots more still to come, including this in the Telegraph. Duchess's tears for the children of the war in Sudan. Back with that in just a moment. The Duchess of Edinburgh, we're talking about that.
I'm Dominic Waghorn, Sky's International Affairs Editor, covering a world that seems to be unravelling. War, unrest, revolutions.
It's not his country, it's ours, and we're going to take it back.
have succeeded for the first time in their country's history in removing a leader from power. Now, freedom! There was fighting here, but there's clearly now a lull, and they're using it to bring up more ammunition. We take you to the heart of the stories that shape our world. This is a mass exodus in which Russia is hemorrhaging some of its brightest and its best. According to the local weather channel, there have been more than 2,500 lightning strikes, torrential rain and flash flooding, all on top of this week's lethal tornado. What stays with you most in this job is some of the people you meet. What is your worst fear about what the Russians want to do to the children?
They're just boosting demographics by stealing young people.
Would you like to take the opportunity, Mr. President, on Sky News to invite Barack Obama to come here? Mr. Trump, are you running for president? Can you confirm it?
We're going to take a look, a very serious look.
On that day, we saw your fighters killing women, killing children. Was that a mistake? Did you go too far? You couldn't control your fighters? The full force of the state is being used to crush any protest. It's half an hour now past the deadline that Hamas issued with its ultimatum to the people of Ashkelon, and we've now seen a third barrage of rockets coming in.
Another alarm. The mood here is jittery and nervous.
We're seeing the world get more and more divided, and it's our job to try to make sense of it all.
Our app gives you the very best of Sky News wherever you are. Breaking news, videos and analysis.
Evidence of the crisis.
Podcasts, watching us live. I'm live in Jerusalem.
Wherever you get your podcast.
All in one place and all at just the touch of a screen. The Sky News app. Get the full story first.
There's always more to the news than a headline. We want to discover, to delve a little deeper, to find out what's really going on. Explanation, analysis, the people at the heart of every story. I'm Neil Patterson, and this is the Sky News Daily Podcast. So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story. A new start to Sunday. I'm ready. Are you? Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
Well, welcome back. You are watching the press preview with me tonight, the political editors of The Sun and The Guardian, Harry Cole and Pippa Crerar. Welcome back to both of you. Picture story, Pippa, on the front page of the Daily Telegraph. The Duchess of Edinburgh speaking 10 miles, the paper points out, from an active war zone, meeting women who had fled the conflict in Sudan and being, you know, really moved to tears about this.
Yeah, she's on the Chad-Sudan border, just miles away, as you say, from fighting, and she's obviously gone there. Increasingly, her focus of her work is on women victims of violence, and rape is a weapon. And she's gone to Sudan, which is a conflict which I don't think actually the media has had as much bandwidth to focus on. It's less, I suppose, geopolitically significant than what's going on in the Middle East or in Russia, Ukraine. And she's spoken to these women who have had some awful stories, really moving, very sad stories about what's happened to them in Sudan at the hands of what was the Janjaweed, remember, the Arab militia that was responsible for the Darfur massacre. Really awful stuff. She was in tears, and I think we should all read it, but obviously prepare yourself, brace yourself for what she found there.
OK, yes, and it's difficult to cover, but certainly we got into the capital last week with our Africa correspondent. So it is well worth, as you say, persisting. In the meantime...
Screeching handbrake turn.
Yeah, I'm
Taylor
sorry about
Swift.
that. So in The Sun, Taylor Swift, what is the latest? Is that what I asked you?
I was baffled when I actually couldn't quite believe what I was writing. You had the Chief of Staff of Number 10.
Right.
You know, probably the most powerful unelected job in this country.
Former Chief
of Staff of Number 10. But still, the Chief of Staff of Number 10 at the time, arguing with the pop star's mother whether the British taxpayer, when there's already been declared no threat to this very famous pop star, arguing with her, taking time out of her day when they perhaps should have been preparing for the budget or, running the country, arguing with the pop star's mother about whether they should have taxpayer-funded motorbike outriders. And then, lo and behold, half the cabinet turned up at the gig that went ahead because Andrea Swift said that wouldn't go ahead if they didn't give her the motorbike hours. I think people can look at that and go, what is this government doing? What are their priorities? And how much is it to buy what they want? Taylor Swift's a billionaire.
She wants Ed Balls and Yvette Cooper.
No,
how many people said?
Well, on the first night alone, Keir Starmer's kids were there, Bridget Phillips was there, Wes Streeting was there. And I'm not saying there's a direct link between them, but you can understand why they were so keen for the concert to go ahead, and if they didn't want to upset, their own tribe. It is remarkable that so much time seems to have been wasted in government, including dragging the Attorney General out of bed and getting to write a legal opinion on this. And the cops are going, what are we doing here? We don't do this for anyone.
It's a book in that, isn't there? In the meantime, talking of books, in only 30 seconds, Kamala Harris and allegations that she plagiarised a book that she co-wrote, I think I'm right in saying.
Yes, and it's a story that her mother used to recount about her as a child when she turned around and she'd say to her, Kamala, what's wrong, what do you want? And she'd wail back, freedom, which was
sounds made up,
something that Martin Luther King apparently, a story that he recounted of a child that he'd witnessed. The problem for her is that plagiarism is obviously an issue for senior US politicians. Don't forget that Joe Biden himself, in 1988 presidential campaign, was curtailed after he was plagiarising a Neil Kinnock speech.
Pippa, Harry, thank you.
The most significant day of this conflict.
They keep telling us that they want aid.